there's somebody there. It's either like an apartment complex or a series of houses in a small community, like a little village.
Okay, so I'm excited to talk about impact that you can control. I've been talking a lot about mentorship and midlife and all the things that we have to look forward to in life. But one of the things that we don't really talk enough about is impact, and impact that we can control. And this can be through our actions, through work, through life, through generativity. Any of those things are the way that we can make impact. So most people want to make an impact, but they misunderstand what impact actually is. They imagine impact as something that's large or visible or public, like, putting your name on a building, something like that, that would cost a lot of money. So, hey, McPlay GT, good to see you here. Thank you. Nice to see you. We were just talking about you. So anyway, it's good to see you here. So my name is Deborah Heiser. I'm an applied developmental psychologist. I write about mentorship, midlife, and I also write for Psychology Today. I have my own blog called The Right Side of 40 on Substack. And I wrote The Mentorship Edge, which is available anywhere you can find books in every format that it comes in. So today, talking about impact through actions. And I'm so excited to see my mentor, McPlay GT, here. So if you haven't checked out his site, check it out. He has an amazing site. He has amazing music. He's a musician. So anyway, I want to get started on talking about impact, because impact is one of those things that we're all doing it all the time. We're all making impact, and we never realize how much we're making. And this is important for us because, a lot of people do things like they create a LinkedIn account, or they create an account that's somewhere on social media, and they don't realize, other than the likes or the number of people that follow them, how much impact they're really making. People think of impact as something that somebody else is doing or something really big. And it's the tiny little things that we do that really make a difference. So again, most people want to make impact, but they misunderstand what impact actually is. So they imagine impact as large, visible, public, something that happens later in life. And once they have more authority, they might be able to do it, that they need to have a title or money or a big platform. So then they stop doing things. They say, I'm not going to do more of this because I don't make any impact. So how many people have ever started with a small account on a social media platform, and you say to yourself, I'm not getting enough followers or enough likes, I'm going to quit. I don't make enough impact. Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about here, because we can take a look at this and you'll find out that you're actually making more impact than you think. Because it could be that it's just a person, a few people, and that's going to build and build and build. Impact is like a snowball. It starts with like some snowflakes that form together, and then you pack it. And once it starts rolling down a hill, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Hi, good to see you here, V Singh. Nice to see you. So when we think about impact, we should be thinking about it's not something that you scale first. It's difference first. It's the measurable way that your presence changes any kind of an outcome, people, or systems. So you might have a teeny tiny account that's actually impacting one or two people. And that's what you want to be able to say, is that you make a difference. Even if it's small, that doesn't matter. You're making difference. That's impact. So think of impact. If there's any area that you want to make impact in, that you're going to look at the teeny tiny things first and build and build and build. You want to start with difference first. I want to make a difference. How am I going to do that? And if you have just one follower, you know that you already have made a difference because you have one person who's interested in you. So the mistake that most people make is that they believe that impact is something that begins when they're ready. When I'm ready, it'll happen. Well, when are you ever going to be ready? You have to do it when you're not ready. You should just go and start to make impact. It begins the moment the intention meets behavior. The moment that you start an account, the moment that you go out and you mentor somebody, the moment that you go do something that you want to do. You're an artist, you make impact. There's going to be at least one, and you also do paid art. So that's amazing. You're making impact. People are buying your art, and they're getting something from that. That is making impact. That's huge. So, even if one person buys your art or it goes someplace and just a couple people are interested in it, that's impact. So, as an artist, you're making impact. You're already doing that. So, um, so hold on, I got to remove somebody. Listen, if you're going to, be a jerk on here, then you're coming off. So there we go. Okay, so when we start to think about impact, one of the things that we really want to do is know the word generativity. So the word generativity is something that we're looking to do. Hold on, I'm just gonna, there we go. There we go. So the one thing that we want to know about generativity is this is something that we're built to do. Generativity means that we're trying to generate something from ourselves out into the world. So I see a lot of this because I work in the field of aging. And people who are older at the end of their lives want to know what impact they made. Did they make a difference in the world? Did it matter that they even lived in the world at all? This is what people will talk about all the time. They'll say, I want to make sure that I mattered, that oh, hold on. I have McPlay GT. I think I missed him. He put in the request earlier. I don't think he's still here though. So we have a lot of people though that at the end of their life they'll say, did I do anything that mattered? Did what I said or did what I do as a job? Did what I do in my home life? Did any of that matter in any way, shape, or form? And generativity is when we're looking at, did I generate anything out into the world? So generativity is when we want to care for others without expecting anything in return. When we say to ourselves, I'm going to do something, I'm going to see if I can make some impact, and I'll know that I mattered. It's a legacy. That's really what all of it is. So generativity is really the long arc of impact. It never goes away. When you are generative, it never dies off. It continues like a snowball going on and on and on. So it's the idea that part of being human is contributing to something that will continue without you. That's why at the end of life, people will say, did it matter that I did these things? They want to know that their name will live on or their actions will live on or what they created will live on, like art or other things after they're long gone. And that matters. So this isn't about an ego or legacy in the grand sense of somebody saying, I want to see my name up in lights or on a building and that would last forever. It's really about what am I building or investing? Am I making the world a better place? Am I doing something that matters to me, that would be meaningful to me? That's really what it is. And am I passing that on in a way that lasts? So some of the ways that, examples of this would be religion. If you participate in a religion, that has been passed down. And so people that, found that religion important are going to pass it on to their children, to their grandchildren, to others that they meet. That's what I'm talking about with that. So if you have a skill or something like that, that's going to get passed on. So there are some areas of, where impact is fully under your control. That's your actions. What are you doing? What are you doing out in the world? What actions do you take? Are you doing things that you want to be known for that make impact, like doing some kind of kindness? Are you helping people? Those kinds of things. Are you making a difference? Maybe you're becoming a leader in some way, whatever that is. So it could be in your work. You have control over what impact you make at work. You have control over impact that you make in your personal life. You have control over your generativity. These are all things that we can do, and we don't need somebody else to give us permission to do them. We don't need somebody else to help us to make that happen. We can do all of those on our own. So a lot of people will say that impact feels difficult because people overestimate the importance of single dramatic actions and they underestimate the power of sustained small ones. So when I talk to people, they'll say to me, I haven't made any impact. And I'll say, are you kidding me? You've done so much. And I'm able to point out all kinds of things that they've done, but they'll say that's not very big. I wanted to make big impact. And then I say, well, when we add all these up, do you see how much impact you make? You have 10 smaller things instead of one big thing. You're making impact. And do you see how it's growing? Now, when we're in it and we're trying to make impact, it can feel like it's really a long haul or that it's not making progress as quickly as we want it to. And that's the problem because then we drop it, we stop doing it. So when we confuse impact with recognition, that's another big problem because we'll think, wow, I have so many followers, that's impact. But recognition is really something different from impact. Impact is, do people get something out of what you're giving? Does it change them? Does it make, are they holding on to something? Is it making a difference for them? That is a difference. So you might have, say, a small account, or you might be saying, oh, I only impact a few people, or I only do a few things. That might be life-changing for people. So you want to look at the quality versus the quantity. And that's another thing. So a person will say, I don't have as much recognition. I'm not making any impact. I'm going to stop doing whatever it is I'm doing. And then that impact stops right there. So, many of the most impactful people are never publicly acknowledged, but their absence would be really felt. So you don't always see some of the most impactful people that are out there doing some of the most amazing things that make the world a better place. But without them, we'd feel the difference. So, another thing that is a barrier to making impact is emotional exhaustion. So if you can imagine when you get that feeling like, oh, I'm just tired, I don't want to do it anymore. It feels like I'm just getting tired. Well, when people are tired or burned out or overwhelmed, they stop thinking in terms of contribution and what they're making as a contribution, and they shift into survival mode. So when you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about making impact. You're thinking of, I just need to get by. And so impact doesn't require any heroic energy. It just requires intentional direction. But it's hard to get that intentional direction when we're burned out, when we're tired, when we're feeling emotionally exhausted. So it's important that we remind ourselves all the time that we are making impact, that really we're doing stuff that matters. We hit burnout when we don't think that we're making impact, when we don't think that what we're doing matters, and then we stop doing it. So it becomes like a sort of a vicious cycle. And people also end up avoiding impact because it creates responsibility. So, impact, the idea of impact feels really exciting until the responsibility of impact comes along. When you start to have, if you're online and you have an account and you start to make impact, and people start saying, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I, they start to comment or they say things or they're around. That responsibility can make it feel heavy. Once you start to make impact and you see that people are relying on you for additional things to help them to move forward or make change in their life, that can make a person feel scared. They don't want to do that. They don't want to feel that responsibility. So once you realize that you can make a difference, you can't be helpless about it. You can't say somebody else should be doing this, or if only somebody would take care of this. So that's an uncomfortable realization that you sometimes need to make that impact. It needs to be your responsibility. And sometimes that's uncomfortable for people. So if you can say to yourself, all right, I'm okay with that. I'm going to take it as far as I can, or I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to be the best that I can be, which could be very average maybe, but that you don't have to be better than good enough. That can be very freeing and help you to move more towards impact work and continuing with what you're starting. So when we think about impact through actions, actions are the smallest unit of impact. These are not symbolic. There are behaviors. They're the things that we do. So most impact is created through teeny tiny micro actions. It's saying something difficult instead of remaining silent. How often have you been somewhere and you're like, I wish someone would say something. This is making people uncomfortable. I wish that somebody would speak up. Well, you can be that person. That makes impact. Most of us don't think that that makes impact, but it really does. Offering help without being asked. I can tell you one of the easiest things that I have seen an action that makes impact is I work at a university and people hold the door open for the person behind them. It makes a person feel good when somebody does that. It makes you feel seen, makes you feel good. That tiny act of offering help to somebody, I'm going to hold the door for you, ends up being something that can change an entire culture of a place. You don't go everywhere and people do that. It's when somebody says, I'm going to do this over and over again, whether people are doing it or not. And then it becomes a culture. One person does it. You know what always happens is when somebody holds the door open for somebody, they inevitably hold it open for the person behind them. And then it becomes something that just happens. So that is something very easy to do. Following through consistently, that's another action that can make impact. You might not see anything the first time, the second time, the first week, the first month, but when you're doing something consistently over and over again, it will end up catching and making impact. Choosing integrity when cutting corners would be much easier. So all of these actions that I just mentioned compound over time. It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not something you see overnight. It's something that you see over time. So you could end up creating a reputation, a culture, a pattern of trust, but that takes time. You're building all of that. And that's what a lot of people feel like they say to themselves, it's not working. I don't see it. It's not happening immediately. I'm going to stop. But just remember, you don't create a reputation overnight. You don't create a culture overnight. You don't create a pattern of trust overnight. Any small action that you make, if you're consistent with it, is going to continue to grow, just like a snowball going down a hill. So those are the easiest ways that you can do that. And, most people will say, well, I don't know if it made any difference. But here's how you can really look at a way to evaluate some of your daily actions. Ask yourself, did this reduce harm? That's an easy one. I opened the door for somebody behind me. Did that reduce harm? Well, it didn't hurt anybody, that's for sure. Did it increase anything? Did it increase clarity? Did it increase a culture? Did it increase something? Yeah, it does. Somebody felt good. And they then held the door open for somebody else. Did this make somebody else's path easier? Yeah. Something as small as opening a door for somebody else can do that. So if you make that an action over time, you're going to be able to see that. So a way to evaluate is, did I hurt somebody by doing it? If you say no, great. That's good. Did this increase clarity? Did it increase some way of thinking? Did it make a life easier for somebody? Even if it's a moment of somebody's life, it doesn't make them different for the long haul, but it maybe made that moment easier for them. Impact through action is so often invisible in the moment, but it's unmistakable in retrospect. So when somebody holds the door for me, I'm not immediately thinking, oh my gosh, they just made impact. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, that's really nice of them, and I feel good. But if I reflect on it, I'll say to myself, you know what, that was really nice. It made me feel really good. It's in the retrospect. So we have to oftentimes go back and remind ourselves, what did I do today? Did I do anything? And you have to look at the really tiny actions that you made, because those are the ones that you're going to be able to say, aha, that did make somebody else's path easier. that did reduce harm in some way or made something clearer for somebody. So when we do these reflections, they are very, very, well, let's see, I have a question here. How do you know what you feel? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by how do you know what you feel? If you can put that in there, I can see if I can answer that. So I'll keep checking back to see what you put in there. So when we look at all of this and we're looking at what our impact is and we're taking a look at what we did, this is going to help us to remember and to be consistent with things and to say to ourselves, okay, I see that some change happened. It was small, but I'm going to remember that I have to just be reliable with this. I have to keep doing it. I have to keep being present. I have to keep moving forward and being consistent, because true impact at the action level is not about being extraordinary. It's about being deliberate. And we can all do that. That's an easy enough thing to do. When I mentioned holding the door open for somebody, how deliberate and easy is that? That's something that you don't have to know anything about the person behind you. You don't have to have a special skill, nothing else. Thank you. I appreciate that comment. So these are things that are easy enough to do. We can build this into our daily life. And if we think about work, work is the most powerful vehicles for impact. And it's because it occupies the majority of our day. And so a lot of people believe that they need authority or, yes, I am, authority or status to create any kind of a change at work. So we don't need any of that. Just like I mentioned about the door, this is where I work, where people will hold the door open at the university where I teach. They'll hold it open, and that makes a culture change. I used to work in a, thank you. I appreciate that. And I feel very lucky to have him. So when we are out and about, there was one place that I worked where everyone smiled at somebody and said hello as they passed them in the hallway, whether they knew them or not. And when I first got to work, I was like, what is going on? I don't know these people, but they keep saying hi. It was the culture. Somebody had started that. And so when a lot of people feel like they can't make a big change at work, it's the little things that can change an entire culture of work that doesn't require any permission from anybody. You can just do it. So I studied at Fordham University. I got my PhD there. I'm an applied developmental psychologist. And I got my PhD a long, long time ago there. And I really liked the program. So that's where I studied. So impact at work usually falls into a few different categories. One of them can be reducing friction. Have you ever been at work where there are people that, don't really get along, or there's like tense places? Yeah, I loved the school. It was a great experience. So if anybody's considering going there, I would recommend it. I loved it there. So reducing friction, if you can be somebody who helps to reduce friction for others, making life easier at work, that's making impact. Most people don't view that as anything big or important because nobody's putting flashing lights on that as being something that's so impactful, but it is. Improving the quality of anything is making impact. Increasing efficiency, that's huge. That's a big impact. Clarifying something that's complex. How often has somebody made something understandable in the workplace? And also developing people. If you're helping to develop people to be better employees, leaders in any position, that is making impact. Yes. I will tell you though, you're saying the debt is tough. You are right. Yeah, I do have bags under my eyes. um, so, when you go on to graduate school, there is going to be debt, that's for sure. But some programs will, you might get a stipend, you could get, paid to go to a program, those sorts of things. There are lots of different scholarships. So if you're thinking of going to graduate school, consider that, because it's really an important, thing to realize that there might not be as much debt as you think. You might be able to get into a program that has, very little that you have to pay, or that they, yeah, I know I only have three in here. That's true. That's okay. I don't mind. But that's really what you're considering. Well, if you're bored, you don't have to be wherever you're bored. That's not a problem. So people constantly create impact at work. They are the most intentional about creating value. And they're looking to do that. They're not just looking to go in and say, "Oh, I'm looking to be led." They're going in and they're saying, "I'm looking to make value in some way." So, one of the most overlooked forms of impact at work is a knowledge transfer. And I have an example of that. When Bill Cheswick was working at Bell Labs, he was asked to build the network firewall. That was before we had one. It was a long time ago. And he said to himself, "I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try to figure out how to do this." And he did as much as he could, but he couldn't do the whole project on his own. He needed help, but he didn't want to tell his boss that he didn't know how to do it. So what he did was he went to a friend and a colleague, and that person who he went to helped him. He taught him what he knew. He transferred his knowledge to Bill, and the network firewall came about. And that's what often happens is when you go to work, somebody will say to you, "Can you help me with something?" And a person at work will say, "Yeah, sure. I'll help you." And they do. And that's a knowledge transfer. And that's one of the biggest impacts that you can make at work. So had that person not transferred his knowledge to Bill, he would have ended up never creating the network firewall. We are all able to communicate safely on the internet because of the network firewall. And that's really something that any big impactful thing that we know of was never created by one person. It was by somebody else transferring some of their knowledge to them. So if you do something like document what you know, share a process, if you mentor someone, you are multiplying your contribution. So hold on just a second.
And people don't understand this at first. They think she's weird and they kind of make fun of her, but then they realize she really has a gift and they try to start figuring out how can we work with her, how can we support her, like how can we make things
Okay.
she can be successful.
So both basically, when you're looking to do this, it's easy. It's mentoring, and mentoring informally is really what I talked about with Bill. Somebody helped him. He guided him in what he needed to do. It's sharing a process. All of that is impact. And we often think we're giving something away and it becomes somebody else's, but really we made the impact. That transfers your impact. And shaping the moral environment around you. If you're getting people to smile when they pass each other, open doors for people, that is impact. So it's not about climbing the ladder. It's about strengthening the structure that you have around you. And in your personal life, there's a lot of ways that you can do this as well. You can make impact in some of the most profound ways that most people don't even measure. So this is when most people underestimate their influence. So some of the things are remembering details. So if you get to have family details that are remembered, some people create photo albums, photo remembering books that have words on it that help to remember details of the family. Those are huge. Remembering details like recipes that I know during the holidays, a lot of people have different cookie things that they make, or some of those recipes, or a meal, or traditions. Those details are huge. If you think about every time, no matter what your background is, what your religion is, if you go into a holiday or a special event and you feel like you know what the tradition is for that. You recognize the smells, you recognize how you behave. All of that is important. That is impact. So that is one of the hugest things, and nobody ever really counts that. Showing up when it's inconvenient, that's another really big way to make impact. And nobody really counts that, but it should be. If a person is showing up for somebody when it's inconvenient, you should be counting yourself as making impact. You made somebody feel worthwhile or feel important or feel seen or valued. Staying regulated when another person is overwhelmed, that's another huge one. Maybe you're the person that is the peacekeeper. Maybe you're somebody who, people can rely on. Maybe you keep it so that things don't get explosive in terms of emotions. Um, and another way is for creating space so that people can feel like they can trust you, that they can be vulnerable in front of you, that they can be somebody who, um, you know, they can open up to you. All of those things are forms of personal impact, and it's all around presence. You know, being present in situations, being there for people, being available, that you're making sure to remember the details, that you're always being around. So, in a distracted world, sustained attention is a rare thing. So if you're able to get some attention that is sustainable, that makes impact. And it's very powerful. I always tell people, most people think that the most impact they can make is at work. And yes, you can make a lot of impact at work, but most people will never remember the accountant Bob, or whoever that is in 300 years, but you'll remember your religion. You'll remember your traditions. You'll remember your values. You'll remember your morals. Those are the things that we think are most important to pass down, and that's from your personal life. So, if we look at generativity, this is another big one. It's impact beyond yourself. So, this is, looking at not what can I achieve, but what can I enable? And this often comes out strongly in midlife, but it can begin at any age. And so this can take a lot of different forms. This is stuff like mentoring, creating systems or resources for people, building communities, making introductions, preserving institutional memory, all of those things. So impact is not something that you wait for, it's something that you practice. Actions shape trust, work shapes systems, personal life shapes people, generativity shapes futures. You do not need to look at all four of those at once. Just think of one thing at a time. That's all that you need to focus on. So think about impact and how it is in your life, because I'm sure that you are making impact and you're just not quantifying it. So that's it for today. I'm going to be back on again tomorrow.